You see Todd playing with his toys. He's doing some drone footage. A boy and his toys. Anyway. So we are working on getting the frame. We're gonna go ahead and use the grinder and go ahead and knock off a lot of the surface rust again, so that we can prime it and get it ready. We have our subfloor that we're ready to put on. We've got our tanks purchased and in stock. We're just waiting to get this frame finished so that we can move on to the next several steps.
So what I've learned is this is actually our second attempt at actually sanding this. I took one day, actually half a day, to sand this because I needed to get this stuff done. Actually, what you'll find out is that the video that we dropped last week was roughly videoed over, well, a little over a month and a half ago.
Or longer.
Yeah, so we did attempt to sand this, and I didn't put it back in because of what we had to do. We had to run the next day. We had to go down to the Dallas RV show and speak down there.
Airstream aisle is a few aisles over.
Let's go
I
down
don't
there.
know where the grand designs are.
We'll find them.
We bought that thing last August, July. But our basic week 1 class is good for RV only. So on your handout, you can see that a standard air conditioner in an RV takes 20 amps. So at 120 volts, you're pulling 2,400 watts just with one air conditioner.
We call this a leg. The hot is what we consider as a leg. So we got 30 amps going through here, makes the circuit through here. This is always German, so that way we don't get shocked. There, so I didn't have an opportunity to put my frame back in the shop. And you'll see how quickly this thing rusted again. So we have approximately 2 days of no rain. So we're gonna try this again. I'm gonna try and sandblast this and get it primered in 2 days.
We are going to sandblast this.
Through this is whenever we first did this, whenever I put on, at least on the front side that you'll see right over here, I put on some primer, and the primer actually is holding up really well. What I'm finding is there's only on the ends and the tips that need to be addressed, and so definitely with that, we're going to address that. We're grinding those down. We will sand this down just because we have it, but we're definitely going to clean that. But the primer is doing a wonderful job. It has not flaked. It is not chalking off. It's actually holding really well, and it's holding on that bare metal really well. There are primers out there that will also adhere to rust. But here's the issue. What we have is surface rust, and surface rust you can almost wipe off with your hand. It has not grabbed onto the metal yet. Yes, you can spray that on there, but what happens is now it's just like a layer of dirt. And so with just a minimal amount of rubbing, you can pull that primer or that paint right off of it. Whenever you're talking about, getting that paint that actually attaches to rust, it actually has to be etched in there. And again, that's concerning for me because this is structural. I don't want so much rust that it's actually pitting into the metal. Again, I know that people do that. They can get a couple years out of it, but it is what it is. So what we're doing, we're knocking off most of this because sand is expensive. I don't have a way to recapture it. with a 30-foot rig. So we're knocking off as much of the rust as we can with our grinders, and then we'll come back and I'll try and make this gray with the sanding equipment. So what we're using on the grinding is these flat discs that you see here, and what it is basically, think of sandpaper folded over time and time again. And this is what we found to be best on taking off the rust. We're not using cutting wheels, we're not using grinding. But these right here, really good at knocking off the rust.
Todd is sandblasting the frame right now. We actually found our sandblaster from a company, I think it's called Texas Blaster. It's like a mom and pop place here in Texas, and they make the sandblasters. You hook it up to a air pressure system. So that's a more fancier way to say that. But anyway, and purchase your, what I call sand, but it's glass, to be able to do your blasting. So we use the grinders to try to get a lot of the easy surface rust, you know, the big sections that are flat, be able to get all that kind of stuff off. And then we're using the sandblaster to go in after that and actually get into the nitty-gritty corners, especially like where you have like a weld, you know, where you have two pieces together, you have that weld spot, and rust kind of gets all in the little curves of that weld. So he's using the blaster to kind of get all that off. And then once we do this, we'll come in and we will take our Rust-Oleum, and we will go ahead and prime the whole entire frame. All right, so maybe I should back up just a little bit. It's underneath the frame right now, putting in the last little bit of primer on the underside of the frame. You don't realize you get to spray painting and you go, oh yeah, the whole underside. It'd be nice if we could just flip this baby over, but right now Todd's on his back on the plywood taking care of it. So we did the grinding, got off the, you know, the flat surfaces with the rust. We used the sandblaster to get in the corners to remove all the rust out of the corners of the frame, and went behind with just pressured air to remove all the sand and debris. And we've just finished, or he's finishing the primer right now. We're using a white paint for the primer, which I don't know if he intended it to be this way, but which genius, because
Yes, because I'm genius.
because then we could see the areas that we missed easily. And so he's going through and just finishing that up, and then we're going to come in tomorrow and use the black paint to coat the frame, and that should be the last, right? The last thing that we need to do to the frame itself as far as prepping it. Correct?
I think so.
All right, good deal. So, no workday would be complete without a stop to your local Sonic for a Cherry Coke Zero, and it's been a good day. It's tiring. There's a lot of back bending and squatting. Your forearms not only are really dirty, but they're a little sore. So anyway, it's been good. Thanks for following us, guys.
Okay, so actually been a long day. Took the whole day doing this, took off of work on the park. So all the helpers that came by, you know, wondering if we're just goofing off. But we got our primer on. Spent the last 45 minutes on my back priming the bottom. But look, doesn't it look like an Argosy frame now?